We have started to record the most recent session of SPCH 1113, Introduction to Public Speaking, for the first summer session. This is Informative Speech Day 1. It is Wednesday, June 11th, 2025. I have informative speeches to show you today and give you my ongoing critiques. Keep in mind that when you go to the gradebook gang, you can check to see how well you're doing so far, with each of the presentations being worth a maximum of 20 points. That's 80 out of the 100. You have the self-evaluation speech critique, which I probably will not talk about until the end of next week, so you can visualize how you might want to approach that. And then, of course, 10 points for class participation, because I can check on Blackboard to see who's been on the system and when. And also with Loom, I get notifications on how many people are watching my materials there as well. But I wanted to begin today's proceedings by going to the final 3 minutes of yesterday's class session, which you'll recall was titled Informative Speech Topic Selection. I want all of you to watch me closely to see whether or not, in my concluding remarks, that not only am I speaking in complete sentences, but am I practicing what I'm preaching in terms of having a solid, smooth, knowledgeable, conversational delivery. And remember, you have to be a good extemporaneous speaker before the conversationality is going to flow. It's like everything else. The more you utilize Loom, the more proficient you're going to be utilizing the technology. The more you look at your video clips, the ones that we don't see with those takes from any of your 4 major graded presentations, how have you improved? Same thing with me. Even though I've been a college professor for many years, and during the pandemic, I had somewhere in the area of more than 425 or so recorded class sessions on Blackboard. Many of those still exist if you do a deep dive either on my website, where I have my course videos, or on my YouTube channel. But it's important for me to be an arbiter of public speaking in such a manner that's going to maximize your respective abilities in those 3 major areas on the SAU speech critique: content, delivery, visuals. With that in mind, let's move over to yesterday's class session. You can see from the timestamp, these are the final 3 minutes. I have my transcript over here, but I also have closed captioning on. I'll play the final 3 minutes as indicated, going full screen. Am I speaking in a complete sentence structure and being spontaneous and conversational in the process? And here it is. When, guys, you're dealing with an online public speaking course, it's really important that you visualize success. And part of that visualization is looking at so many different examples of what people have done in years gone by. You can go to that playlist that I showed you on 2 different occasions on YouTube. If you scroll all the way down and you find either session 8 or 9 or 10 or 11 from 2022, 2023, 2024, those instructor course videos include, on a Wednesday or a Thursday, which would be session 10 or session 11 from the past few years, you can see in real time my commentary on many graded informative speeches that were not shown today. So for all of you, it's really relevant to think about what you want to inform the class about, how you're going to make it as interesting as possible, how you're going to bring your personality out, and as what you saw today in reverse chronological order on my YouTube channel, from Essence Thomas, from Finley Blair, from Jocelyn Keller, Jocelyn going during spring of 2020, Finley going during the fall intercession, December of 2020, And then what you also saw with Essence 4 years ago this week, they all did an excellent job. And as you know, we did a very good, solid effort at demonstrating last week, but now we turn the page. And all of a sudden, before we get to the end of the week, we're closing in on the end of June. So I look forward to seeing what you have in mind for the informative speeches. Always go to your sent email address to make certain that not only have you sent the link to either my SAU Mag address or to my Prof. James Reppert SAU alternate email Yahoo address, but also double check to make certain that I can access, or you can, either the link or the video itself. As for SPCH 1113, Introduction to Public Speaking for the first summer session of 2025, good luck. Informative Speech Day 1 and Informative Speech Day 2 are right around the corner. And that concludes the recording session for today. You'll notice what I do there at the end. I told a couple of you yesterday, and we noticed with some videos from years gone by, either with demonstration or informative speech examples, that occasionally people are so happy to get to the end of their speech, they just stop the recording session without pausing. So if I go back to roughly, I'll just play it here in real time. Listen to my voice. I'll take off the closed captioning. You can see the transcript on the right. Watch now on the bottom right-hand side. When I conclude, I pause, count silently to myself, but I don't stop it immediately. Here it is. Or to my Prof. James Reppert SAU alternate email Yahoo address, but also double check to make certain that I can access, or you can, either the link or the video itself. As for SPCH 1113, Introduction to Public Speaking for the first summer session of 2025, good luck. Informative Speech Day 1 and Informative Speech Day 2 are right around the corner. And that concludes the recording session for today. 1001, 1002, 1000, almost 1003 before I stop it. So it was at least 2 seconds from the time I stopped to the time I actually ended the recording. Give yourself a little bit of air on the end. Same thing at the beginning. Most of you are doing a pretty good job with that. Let's go to Blackboard. Prior to our first presenter of the day, a reminder of the itinerary coming up in the next week through persuasive speeches. Bring this down so you can see all of Persuasive Speech Week as well. We have our Informative Speech Week now. We have our Persuasive Speech Week coming up next week. And I'll tell you at the outset, persuasive speeches don't have to be overly serious. They certainly don't have to be self-conscious. Life is multivariate shades of gray. It's not black or white. I don't want hot takes like what you might see on ESPN or some of the cable news outlets. They're designed to create any type of clicks on social media. You're not really learning anything. There's a lot of hot air. And that's not what I want. I'm interested in thoughtful, insightful analysis where if you're persuading next week, ideally you respect the other side. You may have noticed if you ever do any channel surfing that beginning very soon on C-SPAN, which is the cable channel of record for the United States government, C-SPAN original, C-SPAN 2 for the Senate, C-SPAN 3, it's going to start a program called Ceasefire, where individuals on opposite ends of the spectrum are just going to be talking in a civil fashion. In the United States in 2025, that might not necessarily be the biggest ratings grabber because hot takes are easy to do. you're not necessarily right or wrong, so you can argue about just about anything. It's why politicians and used car dealers usually have a relatively low approval ratings because depending upon who's in office, depending upon how the wind may blow, they might not necessarily say the same thing to different people at different times, with inconsistency being the brand instead of being legitimate in terms of a consistent dialogue or discourse. So that's the next couple of weeks in terms of the itinerary. A reminder when we are going through the course speech schedule. The way that it is going to be working from now until the end of the first summer session. We don't have as many people presenting today as we did last week, but if you needed the extra 24 hours, as long as I receive for tomorrow, June 12th, which is, as you know, Informative Speech Day 2, as long as I receive them by 2 o'clock, because on Wednesdays and Thursdays, I always record after 2 o'clock. Mondays and Tuesdays, the rule has been I usually do it before and post the link to Loom so you can watch the instructor course video a bit sooner. In these instances, on graded speech days, I intentionally wait until later in the week. So to my SAU address or to my alternate Yahoo address, either one of those will be acceptable. Let's begin with our first informative speech of the day. Her graphic will be on the screen shortly. I will take off the mute. This is an informative speech on anxiety. When you look in the upper left-hand corner, remember artificial intelligence is not only creating the title, but also the summary. And as you can see, it also has broken it down into chapters with the transcript for her speech being on the right-hand side. Our first informative speech of today is going to be Ms. Easter, and her topic is anxiety, and here it is.
My name is Mazaria Easter, and today I'm going to give you a formative speech about anxiety. What is anxiety? Anxiety is a reaction to stress, worry, fear, and being overwhelmed. Anxiety is also a feeling of being uneasy. There are different types of anxiety, but I'm going to talk about three. The first one is generalized, and the second one is separation, and the third is social. So, generalized anxiety is a mental condition of constant excessive worry and stress about everyday things. This can be waking up, doing day to day tasks, or going out, just worried about anything, driving, going to see someone, just living your life. And it's a feeling of nervousness that never ends. And the symptoms are restlessness, difficulty of concentrating, and sleep disturbances. The second one is separation anxiety, the stress when separated from their primary caregiver. And this anxiety is most common for children, but adults can have this also. And the symptoms are being wary, excessive distress, crying, and panic attacks. And the last one is social anxiety, a fear of social interactions or involvements of being around others and the feeling of being judged by others or watched. Me personally, I have been diagnosed with social anxiety. That's one of the main reasons why I take this class, because I do have the fear of feeling by watched by others or being judged. And the symptoms are sweating, trembling, rapid heart rate, and body tension. There are healthy coping strategies for anxiety, and the first one is aromatherapy. This is using essential oils, and lavender is the recommend for relieving stress. And the second one is taking baths or self care. Taking a warm bath can help calm you down. Maybe using Epsom salt, which is in this picture right here. and by Dr. Tills, and there are also different kinds of items that you can use by this brand. You can use baths, you can use soap, you can use oils, you can use spray, you can use lotion, and there it's not just in lavender. You can get different scents in any, and they are different scents are used for different things. And the next is medication. Medication can reduce anxiety as well, but it might not be for everyone. You should talk to someone before deciding that you just want to jump right into medication, because there are different ways that you can reduce your anxiety without using medication. But if your anxiety is very, very overwhelming, then medication might be for you. You can talk to someone, you can see a therapist, and you can do yoga, and you can sleep, take naps, and yeah. There are also unhealthy coping strategies, and sleep is one of them. Sleep can be a positive and a negative. And sleep, it can be a negative. It can be used in a negative way if you keep avoiding your problems or you oversleeping, and the lack of sleep can increase anxiety as well. And having a bad sleep schedule as well. And overeating and undereating can be a negative thing. Eating a lot of food and not eating enough can increase anxiety as well. And negative talk, talking down on yourself or others, and this can increase your anxiety as well because it can mess with your low self-esteem and cause very bad mental problems. And also self-harm, isolation, and drugs. This is more information about anxiety that I have. So ages between 18 and 29 are most likely to experience anxiety, and anxiety can lead to depression, like social anxiety, for example. If you get too in your head and you overthink and you think that people don't like you, it can lead to being depressed because you're going to start isolating yourself, not going to want to be bothered, you're not going to be social. So that can lead to depression. And you can be easily misdiagnosed. That's why it's important to get diagnosed by a professional instead of diagnosing yourself. And it can increase the risk of physical health such as heart diseases and diabetes. And this is what I said when I was talking about social anxiety can increase your heart rate, so that can help with your heart health as well. And it can be genetics. If it's anxiety is common in your family, then you probably will most likely to get it as well. And women are more affected by anxiety than men. And the estimate of 19.1% of adults have been diagnosed with anxiety in the past year. And it can be burning sensations of the skin. Everyone is different. Your hormones is different. Everybody don't react to anxiety the same, so you can end up with rashes on your arm or your chest for having panic attacks, and also shivers and derealization. And derealization is like feeling that things are not real and you feel like your life is on auto. You just live every day the same and just feeling like you're in a daze. It also the loss of your hair. If you keep like anxiety, stress is one of the main factors. So if you keep stressing yourself about things, then it's most likely that you can lose your hair. And also don't be afraid to get help. Anxiety is linked with mental health problems, so there's multiple ways you can get help. You can go see a doctor, you can see a therapist, you can talk to your family, talk to a close friend, but don't look at anxiety as if it's something weak or be ashamed of. Thank you for listening.
I think what I would have you do in that case, Masaria, is to, like I showed you at the outset with my instructor course video from Tuesday afternoon, in the respect that you probably need to give yourself a couple of more seconds because If I wait any longer, the video is going to recycle and you're in the middle of your conclusion. At this point, it still will not have a bearing on your grade. What you notice in her circumstance is a marked improvement with both being confident and being extemporaneous. Let's go back to the beginning of her presentation. Watch at least the first minute with the audio up and the closed captioning on to check her complete sentence structure. We'll do this at the beginning and at the end.
My name is Mazaria Easter, and today I'm going to give you a formative speech about anxiety. What is anxiety? Anxiety is a reaction to stress, worry, fear, and being overwhelmed. Anxiety is also a feeling of being uneasy. There are different types of anxiety, but I'm going to talk about three. The first one is generalized, and the second one is separation, and the third is social. So, generalized anxiety is a mental condition of constant excessive worry and stress about everyday things. This can be waking up, doing day to day tasks, or going out, just worried about anything, driving, going to see someone, just living your life. And it's a feeling of nervousness that never ends. And the symptoms are restlessness, difficulty.
Let's go ahead and watch this for a moment, paying attention to Mazaria's eye contact on the upper right hand side, where she has her webcam. No real breaks in thought. You can tell by the level of concentration, she has a very smooth delivery. Sometimes we will have different types of words that we rely on instead of using a vocalic. In my case, sometimes it's and or now. In her case, on more than one occasion, I'm hearing like, but it's not really an issue. And it is courageous of her to share the concept of anxiety that she faces within the speech. And I appreciate that because there are so many people who are in these classes who have some type of anxiety that is presented on the screen, and they may feel like they're either one, alone, or two, don't have anyone to talk to. So the fact that she's incorporating what she calls healthy coping strategies is really a plus. Let's go to roughly the last minute, put the closed captioning back on, and double check her conclusion.
Is different. Everybody don't react to anxiety the same, so you can end up with rashes on your arm or your chest for having panic attacks, and also shivers and derealization. And derealization is like feeling that things are not real and you feel like your life is on auto. You just live every day the same and just feeling like you're in a daze. It also the loss of your hair. If you keep like anxiety, stress is one of the main factors. So if you keep stressing and stressing yourself about things, then it's most likely that you can lose your hair. And also, don't be afraid to get help. Anxiety is linked with mental health problems, so there's multiple ways you can get help. You can go see a doctor, you can see a therapist, you can talk to your family, talk to a close friend, but don't look at anxiety as if it's something weak or be ashamed of. Thank you.
And then she gets to her conclusion, which is rather abrupt. But you can't see from the closed captioning. Thank you for listening to my. But if I go any further, it's going to recycle. Let's take closed captioning off. Scrolling from back to front, as I do with so many of you, where we're examining not only her slides, but her eye contact, because that to a great degree is going to be the effective nature in this case of informing the audience. Do you have that source credibility, that gravitas, and the fact that she's talking about this in such a personal way, in addition to her research, is extremely helpful. So let's just now scroll back and look at her storytelling structure from different slides. There we have more information, including the loss of hair. Usually when I scroll through this way, the video is going to change, but it's not really doing so. Let me tweak this just a little bit. You can see where these particular visuals are, but some of those changes are not necessarily showing up on the screen. There we go. So we get to some of the unhealthy coping strategies. What you have to be aware of, though, Mazaria, is the misspellings. Double check, because on a couple of these slides, I am noticing that there are issues with misspelling. There you have, with unhealthy coping strategies, an issue with spelling. And then there's more information with the loss of hair. I'm trying to find the healthy strategies, but I'm not getting them. Some of the healthy strategies continuing. You'll notice that bathing is misspelled. Something like that, I'm probably not going to have as much of an issue with this week, but you always have to double check to make certain that the spellings are correct, because that is going to affect your overall credibility. So now let's check this out from the beginning, putting it on mute and seeing whether or not we have, there's our title slide. Ideally, I'd like your name on the title slide and the course and when it was offered, as what you saw with Jocelyn Killer's yesterday. Let's see whether or not this helps us out a little bit if we do it chronologically, including separation anxiety. She talked about this from a personal standpoint. Let's see whether or not if we do it this way, whenever we switch, it's just not helping me out here at all. Okay, there's some of the healthy coping strategies. So aromatherapy is misspelled, bathing is misspelled. Always have someone double check, if you're not the best speller in the world, to make certain that there aren't too many of them, because this would affect your grade, Mazaria, by at least 1 point. Not more than that, because there's obvious improvement in terms of your overall delivery style, but you just have to be aware that misspelling like this can occasionally stick out like a sore thumb. But very good research, lots of data with the information, and then moving on as we get closer to the end and see whether or not "Don't be afraid to get help" is the end of the presentation itself. Quality improvement with delivery, keeping in mind that with content and delivery from the SAU speech critique and those visuals, you have to double check the spelling. So that's where you go online or you ask someone to look over your shoulder and say, do I have this right? All in all, back to our title slide, obvious improvement in terms of public speaking skills. Now it's a matter of going back and cleaning up some of the issues with spelling. But good work. We move on to our second presentation of the day. This one is on the topic of Taekwondo, and I'll show it to you right now. This is Kara, and just like with our first speaker on Loom, you have an AI-generated transcript, closed captioning here. She's right around 4 minutes. The times are going to vary, but whatever works for you under the circumstances is certainly appropriate. Our second informative speech of the day is going to be on Taekwondo from Kara, and here it is.
My name is Kara Bowden, and I will be talking about the sport known as Taekwondo. Taekwondo was first created in ancient Korea during its Three Kingdoms era. It was influenced by other martial arts such as karate. The sport gained international recognition through the World Taekwondo Federation, and later through World Taekwondo. Eventually, it would become an Olympic sport in the year 2000. Each belt color has two versions, the second version being senior rank. The belt colors are white, yellow, green, blue, purple, red, brown, and black, and each one represents your skill level. The requirements to test for a new belt rank depends on the school and rank you're testing for. The main requirements are technique, such as your moves that you will be testing. Your form, which we call patterns, patterns are a combination of different moves. Sparring is what we call a game of tag, where you gain points by by sparring and by hitting each other gently. And board breaking and the final requirement is board breaking. Once you become a black belt, you break plastic boards until you're testing for your next rank. The tenets that dictate how Taekwondo students are to act. The tenets of Taekwondo are courtesy, integrity, perseverance, self-control, and indomitable spirit. And on the side is a photo of me with all of my Taekwondo medals through the years. These are two videos of my time in Taekwondo. This was this video. Both videos are me breaking boards for my testing for a new belt rank. I was testing for first degree black belt. That strike is called the palm heel strike. And the next one is the forearm strike. And this video is also me testing for a new rank for first degree recommended level 1. That is the reverse elbow strike. Taekwondo can be of great benefit to people who need a way to safely release their pent-up emotions. Taekwondo is also a great way to stay fit. I was in Taekwondo for 5 years and it changed my life for the better. Now that you know about Taekwondo, it is your choice whether or not to try it out. If you didn't try it out, it can change your life for the better. If you end up going into Taekwondo, have fun. It's meant to be fun, but it also teaches you how to defend yourself. Below are two photos of me from Taekwondo, both of the same belt rank, which is level 5, first degree black belt.
We need to have more of a definitive conclusion there because, as you can see, I'm right at the end of her speech and she hasn't really said thank you yet. She does a good job with the presentation. It feels like you want to know more about her experiences, but she's close enough to 4 minutes, and with the video clips, we can visualize it as well. There is a little bit of nervousness where at the beginning and the end she is taking her finger and scratching the outside of her nose. But as we saw with our first presentation on anxiety from Zaria, now with Taekwondo from Kara, are we learning about your personal experiences where you're taking the informative topic, adding personal experiences to the research so people in class and people who watch these videos can identify with you? And I would argue the answer in both cases is a definitive yes. So we put the closed captioning on. Check out the first minute of her speech and the last minute for that complete sentence structure. Here it is.
My name is Kara Bowden, and I will be talking about the sport known as Taekwondo. Taekwondo was first created in ancient Korea during its Three Kingdoms era. It was influenced by other martial arts such as karate. The sport gained international recognition through the World Taekwondo Federation, and later through World Taekwondo. Eventually, it would become an Olympic sport in the year 2000. Each belt color has two versions, the second version being senior rank. The belt colors are white, yellow, green, blue, purple, red, brown, and black, and each one represents your skill level. The requirements to test for a new belt rank depends on the school and rank you're testing for. The main requirements are technique, such as your moves that you will be testing. Your form, which we call patterns, patterns are a combination of different moves. Sparring is
So she's concentrating, she's extemporaneous all the way through. I might want to tweak the webcam location a little bit so we can see her face more in the center of the screen, but that's basically being nitpicky. Let's pause it now and set up the video clip that she is going to play. On this slide, we'll bring it back a little bit. Those are some of her awards, which give her source credibility. And let's check out the video clip first with the closed captioning off, audio on, and then we'll check out her conclusion with the closed captioning back up.
perseverance, self-control, and indomitable spirit. And on the side is a photo of me with all of my taekwondo medals through the years. These are two videos of my time in taekwondo. This was this video. Both videos are me breaking boards for my testing for a new belt rank. I was testing for first degree black belt. That strike is called the palm heel strike.
Incorporating these videos, now that I've muted her audio, we'll see the one on the right-hand side in just a moment. This is something where people might have a general idea of what Taekwondo is, but Kara, in both of these instances, including audio, is letting us visualize what it is. Because so many of these martial arts we may have some tangential awareness of, but don't really know the specifics. So with that in mind, now let's move ahead just a little bit, put the closed captioning on, and check out her conclusion.
Stay fit. I was in Taekwondo for 5 years and it changed my life for the better. Now that you know about Taekwondo, it is your choice whether or not to try it out. If you didn't try it out, it can change your life for the better. If you end up going into Taekwondo, have fun. It's meant to be fun, but it also teaches you how to defend yourself. Below are two photos of me from Taekwondo, both of the same belt rank, which is level 5, first degree black belt.
And of course, that's literally right at the end. And we need to have Kara a definitive conclusion. Again, like in the case with Mazaria and the spelling, it might minimally affect your grade, but not by much. Basically in the area of about a point, but we need to know exactly what the conclusion is. Let's go ahead and mute the audio and then work our way back and double check the design consistency. She has a similar palette all the way through. You can also see her eye contact on the bottom from the webcam. Data on the videos from her time in Taekwondo, moving back to some of the requirements of belt testing. And this is what I thought she did really well. Let's take closed captioning off. Where she takes enough time to discuss technique and form and sparring and board breaking. And then when we go back just a little bit to a previous slide, there's the history of Taekwondo. And I'm looking for, there we go. This is what I wanted to focus on. What you would want to do in a circumstance like this is if you know your webcam's going to be right here and you have all of these bullet points then what you can do is to take maybe all the way down to purple, then create right in this area or over here, but realistically right here, a second column that would be red and brown and black, and just put it right here so your visual is not going to obscure anything. That's why I was joking during the first week or so when I was experimenting where I wanted to start on Loom. I would have my webcam here, and then during class, I would physically move it over to the right-hand side. Always keeping in mind that because the English language is left to right, if you have the default position of the webcam over here, you need to take into account the fact that you might obscure a word, a phrase, a bullet point, something that you feel like is relevant in your structure that you're going to discuss. Again, I'm very not lenient, but I'm very understanding early on for all of you just getting the hang of the storytelling approach slide by slide that's going to maximize your ability to be extemporaneous and conversational. And if you are doing it on Loom, the advantage is either with that closed captioning or with the transcript. And I have it muted. Now look at on the right-hand side, notice how it's going to follow along her train of thought. We'll take it down to the third bubble. Artificial intelligence is not perfect for closed captioning. It's also not perfect when you see it on YouTube, but it's pretty close. Where if you spoke for a longer period of time, it's almost like having rough data for a paper or rough data for a longer book if you've got a series of video clips. But in both cases today, whether it be with anxiety, with the issue being spelling on the slides, or in this case, with taekwondo, the issue of maybe having a more definitive conclusion, we still did a nice job for those presentations. We're going to have more speeches tomorrow than we did today, and occasionally that is going to happen. So we will have a majority of the people in this class speak tomorrow, but with the two ladies, we certainly got off to a very positive start. And as you're aware, I have down here not only my sessions from years gone by, but as I mentioned at the outset, if you go to the playlist for this course, and I just wanted to go back to 1 year ago, session 10, which is going to be informative speech day 1. Or if I wanted to look at session 10 from summer 2023 or session 10 from 2022, you would notice, as I told you 24 hours ago, that every graded presentation from those classes is not only recorded for posterity, but I'm also adding my constructive, positive critiques to them. So let me continue to scroll down to this time last year. Eventually, you are going to see some of my lecture discussions. That's 2022. The visuals look different because it was recorded on Blackboard video, as was 2023. 2024 was the first year that I used Loom, like this year. Here we have session 10, 1 year ago. Let's dip in and look at bits and pieces. We have started to record the most recent session of SPCH 1113, Introduction to Public Speaking, for the first summer session. It is Wednesday, June 12th, 2024. We are officially at the halfway point of the term. This is session 10.
0.9 centimeters a month, where, for example, Caucasian hair grows 1.2 centimeters a month, and black hair grows parallel to the scalp.
Emotional intelligence was originally coined by Peter Salovey and John Mayer, who are two researchers that kind of discovering and wanting to grow our relationship with that specific person.
React. Seniors were crushed as their last seasons had just vanished before their eyes. Student athletes were in some cases required to move out of their dorms and go home, giving them little time to grieve the situation. Athletes were left with unanswered questions about their eligibility, and no one knew the fates of these heartbroken.
Your presentation. Sometimes that's your security blanket. It all depends upon what your approach is and what makes you.
So what is really interesting about it actually is that when it was showed at E3, it actually looks a 101.63 million consoles, and Wii Sports still continues.
The module overview. We're now at week 3. Remind you that content, calendar, announcements, discussions, grade book, good luck. We're off to a very positive start, like I said, and I've tried to show you representative examples of demonstrative and informative speech videos that not only fulfill the nature of the assignment. So as you can see, and I'll bring my audio back up in a moment, I did a combination last year because the class was slightly smaller than 2025. I showed a couple of familiar faces from years gone by, but also a couple of presentations like today that were recorded on day 1. My last 20 seconds from last year at this time. As informative speech day 1, playing more videos with analysis is always a plus. And that concludes the recording session for today. I still have at least a couple of seconds where I might say 1001, 1002, and that's it. Before we conclude, let's go back to Blackboard. I always have this in the student preview mode. The instructor course video for today, including our 2 informative speeches, are going to be placed right here for session 10. And it will be a little bit longer, so I'm not exactly certain at what particular point the videos will be posted online. But Wednesdays and Thursdays, I usually always record with a start time of after 2 p.m. We'll return to me for the official conclusion for informative speech day 1. You did notice from each of our participants a marked improvement with the delivery. Now, some of the things that I talk about from a positive, constructive standpoint from each of them is going to just make their overall improvement as a public speaker that much more profound, as you know from the SAU speech critique, with content, with delivery, with visuals. We were not only being informed about anxiety, also being informed about Taekwondo, but the personal experiences that each of our students had with those respective topics really made them stand out even more. Are there things that they might look at and cringe? Yes. But the more you watch these videos, as I have indicated on more than one occasion this term, the more that you watch them, you're probably going to get sick of watching yourself. That's when you know you're probably on the verge of really improving, because then it just becomes more a matter of whether you're online or whether you're in a face-to-face public speaking circumstance, that you're well aware of some of the issues that you might face. And before anybody ever sees those issues, not errors, you've corrected them in advance. So even though your deliveries might not necessarily be perfect, for a lay audience, they were not there to watch you prepare, so they don't necessarily know that you forgot in your own mind a paragraph or a sentence or a particular point that you wanted to use as a transitional device from an image to text or from text to a conclusion for an informative speech. We will resume tomorrow, Thursday, for informative speech day 2. That video will be a little bit longer than this one, but that's certainly appropriate because you can watch them 24/7 on either Blackboard or on YouTube. Unfortunately, there is a color banding issue whenever I'm uploading something from my Loom account to YouTube. You may notice in the background it is later in the afternoon because it is starting to storm in the Magnolia area. As for SPCH 1113, Introduction to Public Speaking for the first summer session of 2025, notice how I'm going to conclude this. I will say, and that concludes the recording session for today, but in my mind it will be 1001, 1002, 1003. So I'll do it one more time. The pause is for effect. As for SPCH 1113, Introduction to Public Speaking for the first summer session of 2025, that concludes the recording session for today. 1001, 1002, 1003.